Want to ask you a couple things about the new offensive coordinator, Thomas Brown, and some things that happened in this game yesterday. The time to throw stat for Caleb Williams was his fastest of the season, 2.62, and even just by the eye test, everything was coming out quicker. He was also under center on early downs 36% of the time. That's a season high and twice the Bears' rate for the season. So that's just some stats that we can look at. Wanted to know what you thought about the different approach that Thomas Brown took with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. I thought it was very similar to what I've seen him do most of the year, just in terms of the plays were exactly the same. I've seen a number of times where Caleb has got the ball out quick. I mean, the stat was thrown around all last week. You know, one of the top quarterbacks in the league when the ball comes out quick. Yeah, he was throwing it to his first guy, most of the game. So it's just one of those where I think sometimes we see these things happen where a change is made or a guy is reinserted into the starting lineup and the game goes really well for them. And we automatically think, oh my gosh, the guy's a better player than he was before, or the coach is better than the last coach. And I think sometimes games just play out better for you. And those little nuances may have created that and made it play out better. I just think the situation played out better yesterday in terms of getting the ball out to the first guy being open a lot of times yesterday and things happening. Now, the one thing I will say is I thought it was the most comfortable that I saw Caleb play. And by that, you saw the runs, you saw, the quick decisions to, oh, I don't like the read, I'm going to go create and play fluid and play fast. And so that was definitely something that I saw different for Caleb. Now, the question I ask is, why was that the case? Because it wasn't different plays. It wasn't things that he hadn't been running all year. Why was he more fluid? And so, I asked myself different questions that, I had heard some things a week ago, and I don't know how valid they were, but, I've seen this happen before. I've seen it happen, in my situation. I've seen it happen with, my son who plays quarterback, that sometimes it can be easy for a coach to give the quarterback all kinds of answers. Okay, if they come up and show this pressure, well, just change the protection and slide over here and pick it up. Or if the defense does this, just kill the play to this other play and we'll be successful. So they give the quarterback all the tools, so to speak, to be able to answer all the questions that are out there. But sometimes it's really hard to answer those questions in the moment. Like, oh my gosh, they got all kinds of guys walked up. I don't really know where I should change the protection. I'm not either there yet, or it's too tough of a look to know exactly who's coming, or, okay, they come up and you give me the tools to change the play, but I don't really know if I should change it here or what exactly I should change it to. And so it's easy for us to sit in the back and go, well, he had all the tools to get us into the right play or to change the protection so he wasn't hot there. He just didn't use them. And then there's times where you have to step back and go, but is he capable of using all the tools that you gave him at this particular point? So if that was maybe something that was going on, was they were giving him tools, but he was overloaded with the tools, did they pull back on that this past week? And did they say, we're going to call a play, go run the play and execute the play. And if you don't have it, take off and run or create or get the ball out of your hands or move on to the progression. Don't overthink the things that are out there. And like, I'll use an example, and I don't know if I've shared it with you guys before, but so, I won 2 MVPs in St. Louis playing football, right? And then I get released and I go to the New York Giants. And when I got to the New York Giants, what they had me do every time before the snap was point out the mic. You've heard people do that before, right? I got to go up there and I got to tell everybody who the Mike linebacker is on every play. Now, for me, I never did that in St. Louis because to me, the Mike linebacker is the Mike linebacker 99% of the time. He's the middle linebacker, and unless something crazy happens, and then you could switch it, and you always have that ability. But I didn't want to waste my time going up and trying to tell everybody who the Mike was because we all should know who the Mike was. But I went to New York, and they asked me to do that. So I would spend way more time than I ever had in my life looking at the linebackers and trying to make sure that when the ball was snapped, I had pointed out the exact guy that was the Mike linebacker who was the Mike linebacker most of the time. But I spent a lot of my time thinking about the front seven instead of focusing on the back end where I really needed to be focused. So then the ball snapped and I'm like, okay, now let me get my eyes to the back end and let me make sure I verify everything that's going on. And even as a guy that had played really well in this league and at a high level, it slowed me down in terms of how I wanted to play the game. I was thinking about things that I didn't want to be thinking about, I didn't need to be thinking about. So that's just kind of one example of, now you may have a young quarterback in Chicago and you're overloading him with information that he can't use or he doesn't need to use, and you're making him overthink instead of just play. And that was the biggest thing that I felt yesterday, was it felt like Caleb was just playing football again, and it wasn't perfect, and he didn't see every read and get through every progression, but he just seemed to be playing fluid and fast and comfortable. And so I just asked myself, what was the difference? Did they take some of those tools off his plate, saying, forget it, just go out and be yourself and play ball and have fun again, and let's see if it will look different? And it looked different.
Some great insight from Kurt Warner, who joins us here on Spiegel and Holmes. There's another part, a layer to this that we were wondering if you could break down for us and tell us if it's important or not.
I think it might be connected to what he's talking about.
I do too, but I want to hear what Kurt has to say about this, because Caleb mentioned something about Thomas Brown and how the operation of the offense was a little different. Kurt, take a listen to this.
Thomas right after right after one of the guys go down on a run or one of the guys catch a pass and go down, Thomas is like right on the mic. And then we'll have about 30 seconds on the clock and get in the huddle 30 to 25, and then you break the huddle around 20.
Consider that a little thing that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think all things like that, all little things tend to be large in big moments.
So what do you think about that? The fact that they seemingly were getting plays into Caleb earlier, could that make a difference in why we saw him look better?
It can make a huge difference. I mean, just the fact of not rushing up to the line and having to, getting the opportunity to kind of see what the defense is doing. Also, let's think this is a rookie quarterback. The more time you get to think about a play and visualize the play, or think about, hey, what am I looking for here? What's the most important thing? What is the coverage, does this? Like, the more time you have to think about anything, the more comfortable you're going to be. I mean, if, I had to tell you guys, like, you're coming out of break and it's, 10, 9, 8, and I'm saying, hey, we're going to talk about this right when we get out of break. Okay, go. Like, your mind is automatically going to be overloaded. Like, oh, okay, we're going to talk about, like, what am I going to say about, and you're going fast. And so anytime you could do that, and now I can go up to line of scrimmage and I got 15 seconds to take a deep breath, to eye what I want to see. Again, I can go back to that mic call, right? If I can make the mic call with 15 seconds to go, and then I get another 10 or 12 seconds to eye the secondary and the coverage and what's going on, send my guy in motion, all that stuff. Man, there's times you're running up to the line and going, oh, shoot, we got a motion called here. Okay, hey, you get in position. Don't motion, just get set up over here. And now I got to snap it. I don't even know what the mic was. Like, I don't even know what coverage they're in, because we're playing too fast and we're not giving that guy the opportunity to see what he wants or to take that deep breath or think through the concept on a particular play. So, yes, that time that you can have is extremely important to be able, as a quarterback, to think through all the things you have to think through so you can play once the ball is snapped.
Kurt, a few weeks back when they played the Rams and Matthew Stafford, it kind of looked like Caleb was being asked to do everything that Stafford was doing. And we watched that and we're like, wow, look, he's going up the line. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's choosing this. He's choosing that. And we celebrated that. Maybe we were wrong to celebrate that a responsibility being put on a rookie quarterback.
I mean, guys, every situation is different. So again, I do enough of these, so I apologize to the listeners or you guys if I've already shared this story. But, I think about the way that I played the game. And then I think about the way that Peyton Manning played the game. Peyton Manning was the best pre-snap quarterback that I've ever seen. Seeing things, understanding tendencies of defenses, changing the play, getting into the right play before the snap, all of that stuff is where he was even better than after the snap. He was great before the snap. I was exactly the opposite, where I didn't want to overthink things beforehand. I wanted to get up and play fast and dictate to the defense, hey, we're going to run this play. And then my job was to take in all that information after the fact and then do the right thing with it. And that was where I was so good. That 3 or 4 seconds after the snap, I could see it. I knew what we were going to do. I knew where to go with the football. And we dictated that to the defense, where Peyton did it the opposite way. And so I say that because here's 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks that had really good careers, but they did it completely differently. You know, I worked with a quarterback that had actually been in the room with Peyton Manning. And I remember, you know, asking him to get up on the board at times when we were working together and breaking down plays. And he would take 4 minutes to break down this play and say, hey, well, if they do this, then I'm going to do that. And if they do this, I'm going to do that. And all I could get in my mind was, after, you know, watching him on, you know, film and playing games and stuff and hearing him talk, was he's trying to be Peyton Manning, but he's not Peyton Manning. He's trying to think like Peyton Manning, but it takes him 4 minutes to do what Peyton Manning could do in 4 seconds. And so when he got out there to play, he was playing slower and he was all out of sorts because he was overthinking everything and his mind didn't work like that. And so I say all that for you to come to that point of going, okay, he's doing what Matthew Stafford is doing. And one side of that could be awesome, to go, oh, maybe that's who Caleb is. He's got this knowledge. He can do all of this stuff. He can change plays and he can do, and he can play before the snap. And he's really good at that. And that is a plus. And that is something we should celebrate, if you've got a quarterback that can do that and what that means for a football team. But maybe he's Kurt Warner type quarterback, where he needs to play and react. And that's where he's at his best. And he doesn't need to overthink it. He can react and process information better than he can try to see and pick up nuance and play slower before the snap. So we can celebrate that as well. But we need to figure out who our guy is, what he does best, what he does that will help us to be the most successful. And then let's play to those strengths, understanding that you can be great like Peyton Manning or you can be great like Kurt Warner. You don't have to be great in just one way. And so that to me is so important when I watch guys play, is to know, who are they? What are their strengths? What gives them the best chance to play to those strengths, you know, in terms of how we're going to scheme or build or play offensively. And that's what we should do. Even if we're running the exact same plays, that's what we should do, because that's what's going to make us our best. And I think that's always an important trait.
Kurt, terrific football conversation. Thanks so much for joining us. Even when we disagree, I always find you really insightful. Thanks for the time today, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks, Kurt. Those last 5 to 6 minutes or whatever, the stuff about him in New York, all of a sudden having to identify the middle linebacker, the Mike linebacker, when it wasn't how he didn't do that, and with the Rams, and then that stuff there at the end, that is from an informed perspective. He began the New York example with, I heard some stuff last week, and I think he heard what we had heard, what became the consensus, as we talked about on Friday, Lawrence, that Caleb had been asked to do too much this year. They put too much on the rookie quarterback, and they tried to have him, step in and be some uber veteran reader of all things pre-snap. And even though he can do some of it, it was too much to ask, and it muddled his mind, and it made him play without rhythm. And now we're seeing a better guy with things simplified.
Maybe. Like I'm still not convinced, because, as the mayor of Worrytown, you worry about what happens next. If we would have more time, that's what I wanted to ask Kurt about. Like, looking at the Vikings and looking at Brian Flores, are they playing aggressive press man next week to try to stop some of that? Are they playing zone to try to stop? Like, it's really interesting. I want to keep seeing it.
Yeah, you can't until next week, but I understand what you're saying.
Because it was very cool.
Also, violation on a mini page turn 2 days before the page turn.
Sorry. Yeah, that's on me.
My God.
He's just peeking.
I'm not allowed to peek. I've been told flat out not to pee.
Sometimes you want to figure out how much more you got to read for the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big deal.